Wake the fuck up! Ah. Oh! Like this song. I wish God had taken Miyazaki or any of the other anime directors instead of Satoshi Kon. God took the wrong anime son. Looking forward to the new chapter. You better be, man, considering how much fucking hours I have to grind to produce, you know, 5 minutes of reading content. My god, it takes forever to shit out a few pages of manga. I was listening, or there was like some sort of editor advice on how you should think about your manga and the reading pace of manga and stuff. And they were like, you should remember that every panel that you create is going to be looked at for about 1 second per panel. And if people are going to look at the panel longer, that's like a mistake because it means they're not like reading it smoothly. Manga is basically only a slight bit better than doing animation, except the thing is you're doing it yourself alone, so average attention span is insane. I mean, it was always supposed to be that way for manga, though, because unlike American cartoons, manga is supposed to be read at a certain pace. Like, it's supposed to feel like you're watching a movie if it's working properly, you know? You kind of speed through it without thinking how quickly you're reading. And if you have to pause the manga and read too much text, I think it immediately breaks the illusion, the suspension of disbelief, the verisimilitude that you're hoping to achieve. This is probably the number one reason why, besides all the, even if discounting all the cape shit, I think that this is the number one reason in which Japanese manga has basically eaten the entire market for comics compared to American comics, is because American comics is just like, it's text with a picture attached to it. There isn't any real paneling skill. It doesn't actually feel like you're there in the situation. It's a failure of verisimilitude. Current Hunter x Hunter is literally textbook Kek W. Togashi can get away with anything. If Togashi can get away with posting unfinished storyboards in Weekly Shonen Jump, he can also get away with having a million walls of text and shit, so And I mean, it's the sort of like the exception that proves the rule, which is why everyone keeps on talking about it, right? But if I Google like American comic wall of text, they're not giving me any good examples. I just keep on remembering this specific scene, and I don't know what American comic it was, but it's like a 2-paragraph long single person talking about how she's watching these 2 lesbians fly away, and she was like, God, if this is what it means to be a lesbian, count me in, or some shit like that. But besides the cringe DEI stuff going on, I was just kind of shocked by how much tell not show was going on in it. It's reposted in 4chan all the time. I'm sure there's a ton of people who know exactly what I'm talking about. It's called manga because you do it yourself. If you have help, it's called manga. An interesting experiment is if you check the back of some manga volumes, some of the authors actually list their assistants as credit. So it's interesting to see how many assistants a lot of these professionally published manga have. And on average, they have around 4 usually. But sometimes they go up as like 6 or 7 or 8. And then if you consider that some people get help from like somebody to write the scripts and storyboards for them, and then they have an editor to also do some of the text bubbles and bounce ideas off of. These operations, although manga can generally be done alone and should be done alone as much as possible, I think, to make sure that you have as much hands-on stuff going on, but it can be made by as high as like teams of 10 people essentially. Still not as bad as American comics, where you have the penciler, the inker, the colorist, the person who does the text, the writer, 2 editors, and then nobody has intellectual property control. Play any bilateral lately, or you managed to fight the temptation off? I uninstalled it again. I mean, I was just talking about playing it yesterday, so I think I played another game and I was like, okay, now is the time to uninstall. We'll see if I get the urge to reinstall it. It only takes like 2.5 seconds to reinstall that size of a game, so it's not really a good prevention, but just having one extra click you have to do. Video games really are a huge problem if you want to actually accomplish anything. I think they're probably up there with like alcoholism, for stuff in which it can derail your life. if you have some other goals besides playing video games. The problem is that, especially with difficult video games, it makes you feel like you accomplished something, right? It's like, oh, I did something. It's like, you did do something. But like, there's zero chance I can compete with these goat artists like, I don't know, Mori Kaoru or whatever, who are just drawing non-stop and are also more talented than me if I'm also going to be playing video games. Especially shit like Balatro, you can play unlimited amount of hours playing that stuff, so... I'm tired of the infinite restarts of American comics. This is what happens when the author doesn't own rights to their own IPs. I'm surprised it actually took so long for American comics to really go down the shitter, because they've had the same problem forever, which is the core problem of American comics is that the IP is owned by the company. It's not a creative endeavor, it's a corporate endeavor. And corporations want to safely create profit. And they can never allow their IP to expire and end. So just by definition, it's going to fall into a hopeless hole of stagnation after a while. I'm just surprised it took so long for it to get there. You can say that the MCU right now is sort of speedrunning the same process that the comic books had going on in terms of stagnation and the weight of the stories building up to the point where they can't continue it anymore, and then they just have to reset everything, but they can't actually produce anything new because they're not empowering their own creatives to produce anything new, and nobody has any good ideas because they've been holed into the same cape shit zone forever. So theoretically that wouldn't be a problem if comics were still for children, because the thing for selling a product to children, like actual children, is that children grow up and then they stop consuming that product, but then there's a new generation of children where it's the first time they've watched Boss Baby or whatever, so they think the fart jokes are new and funny, even if it's the same fucking joke told a million times. But in this current world, we have just endless amounts of man-children who, instead of growing up and stop reading comics, they're like, no, I need new stories and stuff. At least the Pretty Cure and Sentai consumers aren't like, why is this the same shit? They're like, no, I enjoy the same shit. I will watch Pretty Cure season 578. And I will not give a single fuck because I have embraced my man-childness. But American comic book consumers are kind of in this nowhere land between growing up and not reading comics, but they're also not willing to consume the same crap again and again and again as well, so... What is this weenie-ass, baguette-ass Eiffel Tower humping music? Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. Je t'aime, mon ami? Perhaps you would like to take a short trip to Paris, where you can be sexually harassed by the Frenchmen, yes? Wrestling has a rule that after 6 months you can flat out contradict established plot points, and after 2 years you can repeat plot beats, at least from what I've read. Yeah, that's true. Have you been playing Expedition 33? No, but that might be why they're giving me this baguette bullshit in my YouTube recommendations. Just like the only good America is the America imagined by Japanese. The only good Paris is the Paris imagined by Japanese people. Oh wow, I think they've banned the anime Paris commercial. That's so weird. Maybe it's French. It's not showing up. I was gonna show the Japanese anime commercial produced by the tourism board. Wow, I think they've purged it from YouTube. That's really interesting. I think it's gone. Holy shit. There was this endlessly memed on commercial that was produced by the French tourism board, um, that shows like, you know, the anime version of Paris, and then people were superimposing that next to what, you know, the actual version of Paris was, with various brown skinned minorities rioting and stuff like that. And it was getting so many views. I think that they've done a cease and desist to YouTube because it's not showing up anymore. That's really interesting. I think France got triggered too hard by their own Japanese anime commercial they produced. Interesting. I think this is the first time I've seen something like a commercial get purged from YouTube. I wonder if I go on the greater internet instead of YouTube, it will show up. Yeah, it's fucking gone. Interesting. I see still images, but the video itself has been purged. That's really interesting. Wow. It looked like this, and it was like a full 3-minute commercial, and it was published from the France Tourism Board. They paid a Japanese anime studio to produce it, and it's your two lo-fi anime girls going on bicycle tours around rustic France and the beautiful capital of lights, Paris, and shit like that. And now it's gone from the internet. That's really interesting. I feel a majority of Japanese tourists will find a way to enjoy any city. Whenever I encountered them in New York City, they would be having a great time taking pictures of pigeons and shit. They have low expectations, I guess. I don't know. I don't see many Japanese tourists anymore because there's so many fucking Chinese tourists taking up the space that Japanese tourists once inhabited. Japan is poor as fuck right now because they refuse to increase their interest rates, so the dollar to yen exchange is still completely fucked up. I guess if you're coming from a clean country with robust social services, your expectations of an American city are justifiably low. There's one Japanese travel YouTuber that I follow, And whenever he goes to a country, he just like does the most bumfuck shit. So when he was in New York, instead of properly staying at a hotel, he just rode the subway cars all night with the other homeless people. And I'm just like, what are you doing on your vacation? But he was like, yeah, it's pretty good. The subway cars. As long as you don't get stabbed. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty big if there. He's experiencing the real New York. Get to see all the rats at night. The dog-sized rats. Although he was pointing out that the American rats don't got shit on like the Indian rats and stuff, so even the New York-sized rats aren't that big a deal compared to some of the other rats in the world. Got a job just to pay my favorite artist? Thank you. I appreciate the support. It's also good that you're paying Mr. Bezos some money as well. Oh, one more thing about France, because Death Striker is here. I just want to say that Rudy Gobert is definitely not worth a max contract. I don't care how good he is on defense. Any player that is worthless on offense like half of the time, unless he's getting dunks handed to him directly without any defenders around him, should not be getting a max contract. Also, he can get played off the floor on defense as well, so... To be fair, everybody looks like shit when they're playing against OKC because OKC is that good, but... I mean, there's been other teams in which he just gets straight up played off the floor, so... If you're getting a max contract, you should be valuable in basically every situation. Basketball is one of those few sports where as long as you're tall enough, you can be shit at a bunch of other things and you'll still be like really valuable. As long as your knees don't explode from being 7 foot tall. Oh, also in review of the Knicks Pacers series, because Death Striker is here, I just want to say that Tyrese Halliburton seems like a real Giga Chad, and it's only natural that he would want to inseminate blonde women and spread his masculine chin genes. I think he was the Giga Chad all along. Goddamn fucking Greg Oden. Besides Greg Oden, who is like the most obvious example, there's just a ton of basketball prospects that people are like, oh, he might be great, and then they end up being too tall, and then their knees explode. Apparently San Antonio is trying to hide the fact that Victor Wembanyama might have grown another inch or two because they're terrified that he might be too tall. If he's apparently like he's like 7'7" now or some shit, which it seems like he's in the danger zone. He just got blood clots, which apparently are more likely if you're super tall as well, so... 7'7", very normal height. You know that you're too tall when you're on a basketball court and you look like obscenely tall on a basketball court next to all these other 6'5" guys. It's sort of like the opposite of Chris Paul. Whenever Chris Paul would be on the basketball court, I'd be like, look at this fucking tiny midget. And then you actually look at his height and it's like 6 feet tall. It's like, huh, that's kind of tall. I guess everyone around him is a fucking freak. Tyrese Halliburton living his best life, imitating the choking gesture to Reggie Miller and locking a blonde Midwestern Indiana 10 out of 10. Yeah. I'm just, I think we're gonna have to come to terms with the fact that Tyrese Halliburton is a powerful Sigma Chad. It's just funny because I go on Japanese message boards while I'm watching the games, and they keep on calling Brunson Busamen and Tyrese Halliburton Ikemen, which are the words for being ugly and hot, so... I'm 6'5" and it has caused serious problems in my life. I can't imagine what being 6'7" plus must be like. And they have to jump and run at 7 feet tall. I was playing pickup basketball a lot for a short period of time back in like high school and college. And just playing pickup basketball for a few hours per week at like 6 foot. Not 6 foot, I guess 5 feet and 11 3/4 was enough to give me chronic knee pain. So human were not meant to jump up and then land on our fucking knees with the force of 10 million tons again and again and again. We're just annihilating all the cartilage in our bones. Basketball isn't a contact sport, but it is very demanding. It basically is a contact sport, though, in terms of like the actual amount of contact people have with each other. They're bouncing into each other basically every play. You're bodying each other up. Maybe not during the regular season, though, which is why I don't watch the regular season, but during the playoffs, you're basically smashing into each other pretty much every single play. Getting kicked in the balls all the time. Then you have pitchers just wrecking their arms to throw a bit faster. Is it the throwing fast part that fucks up the arm, or is it the trying to throw a special magical ball that suddenly drops and falls and stuff like that? Because that's where you have to twist your Tommy John into 10 million different directions and fuck up all of your cartilage and your tendons and stuff, right? Which brings up the question, what sport is worse for you? I know what sport is the best for you. It's swimming. 0 chance of damaging your joints. Great for your aerobics. The only obvious negatives are possible damage to the skin if you can't handle the chlorine and shit if you're in there too long. But swimming is definitely the best sport for you. Rugby, I think the answer might be slap fights. Considering there's been multiple people who have died from slap fights recently, so... Championship speed eating. I think speed eaters have a longer lifespan than a bunch of like sumo because they don't get fat. They're either puking it out or just not eating anything for long periods of time in between. So I think sumo wrestlers have the shortest life expectancy. Turns out being fat is bad for you. Slap fighting is not a sport. That's like calling ancient gladiators athletes. That's a little unfair to ancient gladiators who I think were actually expected to, you know, move around and not get punched in the face. I would call slap fighting more in the same category as, I don't know, ritualistic suicide or some shit. I mean, I can't think of any other sport in which you're supposed to be doing damage to your body and you continue doing it even as you damage your body until you fucking get knocked out and you it's literally a sport that continues every single fight against someone until you have brain damage. And then it's like, okay, he has enough brain damage that he can't wake up. We can stop this round. Next guy. It would be like if the NFL commissioner was like, you know what? I think football is doing pretty well, but one thing it doesn't have enough is CTE. We need a sport that causes more brain damage. And they're like, what about slap fighting? Really missing my art tablet, so you'll be my therapy instead today? You don't need an art tablet to draw. You can draw anywhere just by scooping your own poop out of your asshole and then wiping it on the walls. And now you can be a painter, even when they put you in the insane asylum. AI can never replace us. Not when we have our ability to draw with our own poop. At this point, we're one step away from competitive CBT. I mean, boxing back in the day was also way closer to current slap fighting in the way that they wouldn't stop fights and shit. There was just a long period in human history where we were like, you know what? Getting knocked out is a completely normal, natural part of human existence instead of something that's causing irreversible brain damage. He'll be fine. I just realized I've been saying CBT instead of, I forgot what the brain damage thing was. CBT is cock-ball torture, so that seems incorrect. What happened to the Yoda cock-ball torture meme? That was my favorite Twitch meme. Crush my balls! With a rock I must. It is a weird how many action movies and shows have the protagonist getting knocked unconscious but then waking up and not having brain damage. It's a long honored tradition where if you want to change your scene, you can just have the main character get billy clubbed above his head and just be fine. I'd be like, huh, oh, I woke up with a lump on my head. Damn. I think it's even worse when the main character, who is supposed to be like extremely against killing people, is like, I'll just knock him out. Like, you know, Batman. Everything that Batman does is just being like, I'm against killing people, so I'll just beat the shit out of them and cause irreversible brain damage. But, you know, Batman comes from a different time in which we actually thought that was fine. I do think it actually contributes to, like, serious real-world consequences when people think that punching another person and knocking them out and stuff won't possibly kill them. And then they do die, and you're like, oh, you're up for murder. Like, think about how many Japanese cool 90s delinquent manga there is, where they're like, ora ora nanda teme, and then they are like, we're gonna fight with bare hands, honorable, over who gets to be the bancho of the school. You mean Baki isn't realistic? Baki is extremely realistic, guys. You should see my training. Every day I pretend I'm fighting a giant praying mantis, which is why I'm so strong. The imaginary insect I'm fighting is just as dangerous as a real human being. Maximum pain I must endure. I wonder if there's YouTube videos using our latest AI to produce Yoda voice. Let's see if there's anything if I look for Yoda CBT. There's a Lego Yoda CBT with 1.4 million views.
Crush my cock with a rock I must. Maximum pain I must endure.
Not bad.
Here we go.
Why would you need AI for it? I don't know. We have to have the highest quality possible cockball torture references. It's the only way. How many years ago was that? It feels like it was, I don't know, 6 years ago. It couldn't have been that long, though, I think. How did Yoda become so old and so respected if he had to crush his balls with rocks so often? Does he just have force heal or something like that? If you had force healing, would that allow you to repeatedly perform extreme versions of cockball torture and then just heal your balls back up? How much pussy did Yoda get back in the day? These are important questions we must ask about the Star Wars universe. Everything regarding Yoda's sex life is extremely important. What if Rey, instead of being a Palpatine clone or whatever, was instead like an illegitimate daughter of Yoda after he had like a mistaken affair with some women back in the day. Yoda was like fucking a peasant on Dagobah or some shit. Remember, Jedi are supposed to be celibate? No, that can't be. Then how can I get into the Padmeusi? The Nabuti. Amidalasi. The Jabusi? What about the Jar Jar Ursi? Jar Jar known for his succulent ass sex. Hold on, I have to look at Rule 34 to see how many Jar Jar Binks pages there are. There's only 401 Jar Jar Binks images. That's fucked up. And he's mostly having sex with other women. Not other women, but... not enough gay Jar Jar Binks porn. I mean, there's quite a bit, actually. I take that back. I just need to go a few pages deep. Anakin did whatever he wanted to because he was the chosen one.
Anakin, I have failed you. I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over. Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Well, then you all look.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Thank you for your college freshman take there, Anakin. I think a day or two after Expedition 33 came out, Mayel had 16 results. I mean, it's a lot easier now if you don't disregard AI, because AI can just shit stuff out immediately and requires way less effort. But you still need someone to be like, I really want to see porn of this character. Lucas writing the greatest dialogue in cinematic history. The dialogue is bad, but it definitely has a sort of, I don't know, authorship to it. Like, if you had a bunch of decent but somewhat mediocre writers in a Hollywood writing room instead of Lucas writing the dialogue. You wouldn't get all these memorable bad lines like, what did you do about the younglings and stuff like that. The younglings are just so funny as a term.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Not an actual line, bro. Made it up. When did they say the term younglings? I know they said it. The term younglings doesn't come out of nowhere. It's definitely a real term that was used some point in the movies. We didn't just make that shit up. Only Lucas could have invented a term like younglings, so... He was a visionary. You will never get blockbusters that feel like it was made by an actual human again. That's true. I agree with that. Sometimes I watch an old blockbuster that was made by a real human, like, I don't know, Apocalypse Now, and the movie is so fucking good, like, I can't believe it actually exists. And it really speaks to the decline of Hollywood after they started making shit by committee based on comic book IPs. It's funny because we're just giving credit to Lucas for being like the last person who made a blockbuster that actually feels like it was made by a human being. But he was also like the main reason why we're in this situation right now is because people figured out that they could make $1 billion if they had their own Star Wars. We need auteurs. We do have auteurs. The problem is that we need movie studios to give these auteurs $1 billion to make their giga movie. I mean, Coppola basically bankrupted the studios to try and make Apocalypse Now, and he almost bankrupted himself and stuff multiple times because, you know, he was like so dedicated to his movie vision. But holy shit, it fucking paid off. Also, he had a bunch of movies where it didn't pay off, so... As long as movie studios are in the business of just making money, we won't get that level of visionary production. They'd rather have something that's safe, which isn't going to make as much money, ultimately. Blockbusters were also never meant to be good. Yeah, but they're not even good enough to get people's ass in seats right now, i.e. look at the Marvel-verse. It's kind of hard to tell because Disney also is making $1 billion off Lilo and Stitch real human version, of course, as usual. But, I mean, people didn't go to see Snow White. Somehow, even for the brain-dead normie, the stink of Snow White was so stinky. It was such poo-poo that even the normies didn't go see it. Which, it counts for something. James Gunn 2. Do you think that the new Superman is going to be good? I don't know, man. I think James Gunn has a little more vision than the average Hollywood production, but I don't know if he can save the DC verse. It's putting a lot of weight on one guy to be like, you're the only one who can save us now, James Gunn. Last movie I went to watch in cinema was Sinners. Yeah, I was thinking of going to see Sinners, but nothing can get me out of my futon ass seat anymore. I can't go to the theater for 2 hours. I don't have time for that shit. It's usually going to be 3 hours and then 4 hours if I have to drive, so... The live-action Lilo and Stitch is the final nail in the coffin that proves that certain media is meant to be in a certain format. Yeah, but it also made a shit ton of money. So Disney doesn't give a fuck if it's artistically horrible. The whole stop remaking Disney animated movies as live-action films, that's fucking stupid hive, which was like me and a lot of other people, is in shambles because normies keep on going to see subpar garbage like the Mufasa movie and stuff, so... It's not really normies, it's just parents. Parents don't give a fuck about the quality of the movie. They just need to distract their child for 2 hours, so... It's cheaper than a babysitter. And then they can go to the bathroom and use their phone to masturbate while the kid is distracted by the 3D graphic lion or whatever. A friend's cousin actually went to watch Lion King remake and we just call him NPC since then. Yeah, that's probably the most NPC content you can watch is Disney live-action remake movies of movies that you've already seen. The funny thing is that they've basically already done every single live-action remake they can. I mean, they fucking did 2 Aladdins. They are basically at the end of their stockpile, and they're gonna have to produce something new now. Unless they do, like, fucking live-action Frozen, of all things, which they might. But all the 90s classics, they have already expunged. They've shot all their bullets at this point. I mean, Lilo and Stitch was definitely not the most beloved of Disney movies that needed a remake or whatever, so... Wouldn't you care about what your kid's watching? That shit really affects you even if you're a toddler? I mean, I don't think it does. I think you can traumatize your children if you get them to watch enough scary content at a young age. I would support this. Make sure children are terrified. I'm gonna put my 5-volume box set of Junji Ito's Spiral in my children's crib so they can start educating themselves on the horrors of spiral shapes from a young age. Poutine is still base, by the way. Happy stream, everyone. He's lying. Poutine sucks. It's an inferior version of chili cheese fries. It's not that good. It's about as good as you would expect something that's has a shit ton of fat and salt in it, which is pretty good, but it's not amazing. I watched Alien when I was 7. I'm fine, but that's actually a good movie. LOL. There was all these like horror manga for kids that I read as a kid in Japan that were specifically aimed at children and were meant to traumatize children. Japanese society has the right idea. They were kicking fear of the yokai into children at a young age. The Japanese child must learn to be afraid of going to the bathroom where there's all sorts of terrifying lowly yokai inside your public school bathroom. Hanako-san sitting in the toilet. Everything is yokai. Umbrella is yokai. Why do you think Japanese birth rates were so low? Men are just having sex with yokai instead of normal female women all the time. It's to distract them from the fear of work culture. If you think about it, there's very little Japanese horror about like salarymen and stuff, which makes sense if you think about it because the salaryman is already his soul has already left his body, so spooky ghost just showing up and torturing him is probably a general plus to his day. He probably feels better. Anything to break the monotone of going to work every day. I want my live action remake of Song of the South with happy slaves. The average Japanese salaryman has Schrodinger's thoughts, simultaneously thinking of killing himself and of killing his boss. Nah, it's just usually killing himself. That's why Japanese society is the way it is. When Japanese people get depressed, they just think of jumping into the train. They don't have their convenient AR-15 assault rifle sitting around. There aren't even shit like mass stabbings and stuff for a while now. Every once in a while you get someone who does something that would be the American equivalent of a mass shooting, but it's pretty rare. The guy who set fire to Kyoto Animation wasn't even like a normal depressed person. He was like a true schizo. So don't jump in front of trains. It's very rude as it delays train services for tons of thousands of people. It does, which is why the train companies are allowed to fine your loved ones and stuff if you kill yourself that way. It doesn't really stop people from doing it because they're already depressed in the first place, but dude had delusions that they stole his creative work. It's especially interesting when you actually go into the details of what the Kyoani arsonist thought was stolen from him. It was like, I wrote a scene in which my characters go to a grocery store to buy some meat, and they had the same scene in K-On! And stuff like that. I'm like, holy fuck, this guy truly truly is a schizo. It was just like, there was a grocery store in Kyoto Animation, and there was also a grocery store in my script. It's like, holy fuck. He's losing it. Apparently he had all these genetic indicators too, where all the rest of his family also was like, they had either disappeared or were in prison or some shit like that. I guess I shouldn't feel so bad about possibly reproducing and creating more people with Asperger's when people like that are also allowed to reproduce. Obviously don't give a fuck, which is why they don't care, but... What's your favorite 2020s anime? I have not been watching any anime recently. What is it? That's a good question. 2020s. The last 5 years. It would have to be Cyberpunk Edge Runners because I didn't actually watch the anime, and instead I drew a bunch of Cyberpunk Edge Runners anime related fan art that got me a lot of likes on Twitter, and I didn't actually have to watch the anime. I just had everybody talk about it in the background, so I was able to save a lot of time not having to watch the shitty non-animation by Trigger in which they use the same still and literally nothing moves for like 30 seconds, and I thought my TV had frozen, but instead it was just Trigger maximizing the we're saving on the budget. I also like how it was, spoilers, Zoomer's first anime in which people actually die, even though it's just like a staple of the criminal storyline to have all of your characters die, and people were like, all these young kids were legitimately getting upset that their beautiful anime world was being interrupted with the concept of everyone getting killed. I was like, LMAO. I get to watch these Zoomers grow up before my eyes. This is probably the first criminal story they've read. But it's their style. Trigger has a lot of animation when they have the budget. It's just that they often don't have the budget. It's like they're maximizing the Japanese anime concept of like when you do have action scenes, you go all in and you do like full power. But for scenes in which you don't have to use your budget, you don't use your budget and you skimp on it as hard as possible. Whereas Western anime, they make sure there's like 60 frames per second or some shit for completely meaningless scenes in which Homer is just like slightly moving a tiny bit, but it's super smooth. I can't wait till I'm 30 so I stop hearing dumb Zoomers. It's not Zoomers' fault. That doesn't change the fact that they're dumb. The reason why most of the shit is bad right now isn't the Zoomers' fault. It's the Gen Xers' fault. They're the people who are producing the content. In 10 years, the reason why shit will be shit is because the millennials will be producing shit. The current situation is you still have the boomers being like the CEO of companies and being like, we have to make money. And then they hand that off to like a Gen Xer who's like the producer, who's like, I know how to make money. It's through DEI shit. And then you have millennials producing this stuff like actually drawing it and shit, and then you have Zoomers consuming it. That's the pipeline we have. I wonder what shitty tropes millennials will introduce. It's a good question. It might be backlash, considering how unpopular the past 10 years have been. It might be some real, like, conservatard content. Like, full-length anime about how women shouldn't have the right to abortion or something like that. I don't know. The new Devil May Cry animation is peak Gen X abuse. I think all of the anime that is animated in that weird non-anime Korean, what do you call it? The, what's that studio's name? The Voltron studio, that style is all like Gen X abuse. If I refer to the video game industry and the millennial slot writing and narrative building, I don't expect quality. I don't expect quality from anywhere besides Japan at this point anyways, so I don't even care what generation is being produced by. If it's an American company, I no longer have any kind of hope in the West to produce something that I like. There's very few millennials at the AAA level, but below that, yeah, the writing is cringe. Marvel ruined a generation of writers. At least the internet can bully them out of the Marvel tropes by constantly making "he's behind me right now" references and stuff. Maybe that will cause the writers to realize that their writing is cringe and they need to write something more sincere. One of the most egregious things about the show is how it referenced September 11th politics. The dude Addy whatever, his name does not know anything about politics. Did he base the video game off of the DMC remake that they did after DMC 4 that everybody fucking hated? Because that had some weird Bush era politics in it. In the future, the only writing we will have is just the lore articles about the gacha we're consuming, and people will praise this as the pinnacle of modern writing when they read the lore page of Gacha Girls. They'll be like, I'm so glad I can understand the backstory of this Blue Archive character better when I masturbate to porn, AI generated porn about her. In the future, all entertainment will be procedurally generated AI. I mean, that's what the corporations want, for sure. That's their end goal. I don't know if they're going to be capable of doing it. They're certainly going to try. So far, we've had exactly 0 things produced by generative AI that have gained wide popularity among normies and stuff, so... we need at least like one proof of concept before I'm willing to see, like, even entertain the idea that this might work. And no, masturbating to horse porn of Zelda, it does not count. That's what I do every day, but I'm not counting that as widespread appeal. We already can produce trash without AI. Yeah, we'll just get more trash. And corporations will try and sell it to us as better trash. AI use for entertainment will be outlawed within 5 years. I mean, there's a very real possibility that the lawyers will be so powerful that they will overwhelm the AI tech bros. I mean, certainly it'll be that way for the music industry. We can produce songs that sound like Taylor Swift and Drake, but I don't think Taylor Swift and Drake are particularly worried about losing their livelihood because they have a gorillion lawyers that can sue whatever AI generating people into the ground if they ever start, encroaching on their territory. So... please overthrow our techno-feudalists. There's also a possibility that it just sort of collapsed under the own weight of the AI, the budget of the AI. Because AI can't just be successful at what it does. It has to be successful and, like, cheap enough to be profitable. That's the big part, right? Competent AI will hopefully just be so expensive that hiring actual artists will be cheaper. I mean, that won't save the artists from corporations trying to outsource their shit to the Philippines and stuff, but yeah. You know what's even cheaper than AI? Just stealing, like Bungie. Why use generative AI when you can just go to someone else's portfolio and just steal it? The old-fashioned way. Sometimes the old ways are the best. Just normal plagiarism. shit is eating a whole bunch of energy and workforce. I mean, it takes billions of dollars for it to be upgraded, and they have to constantly be upgrading because that's how tech bros work. But also it is constantly using tons and tons of fucking servers. We often think that just the internet is this magical technological space in which nothing actually costs anything, but there's physical machines that have to, you know, move billions and billions of silicon parts every single time we want to generate a sexy Oni girl on Grok. Grok, generate an image of Winnie the Pooh with the face of Xi Jinping. How do you spell his name? Saying the Uyghurs are enjoying their fun vacation in the concentration camp. This is what they gave me. You can do better, Grok. I do kind of like the second one, though. It feels like he has a stand. You know, it's like, Ore no stando Winnie the Pooh wa. Stando da to? Teki no stando kougeki o uketeru. Grok is pretty shit for image production, not gonna lie. It's really good for text-based shit, but it's really bad for images. What is that about Uyghurs? OMG. I was just thinking about the Uyghurs because there was a recent New York Times report that after the West started to the West was trying to divest money from Uyghur factory production in China because of human rights abuses. So apparently China has been shipping the Uyghurs out into different parts of the country, so they're not in the region. So you can't recognize if your shit is being produced by slave labor or not. Red Note has been feeding me a suspicious amount of I'm a Chinese Muslim living in China. Here's a day in my life content. I'm sure there's... I mean, that sounds like really good Blue Sky content, if you think about it. Because you know they're just going to show you lots of fun, relaxing scenes in which people are really enjoying their life. So when you're feeling depressed, there's nothing like some good Chinese propaganda about how the Uyghurs are living. Apparently there's like some Uyghur theme parks if you go to the region where like it's like you get the equivalent of the Disney It's a Small World kind of situation. There's people dressed up in their native dresses and stuff, and they'll play traditional Uyghur songs or some shit. China is so wholesome, you chud, you're choking on American propaganda. Have you not seen how cool all the LED lights look at night? How many people have actually been to China? I never plan to go under any circumstance. My mother went to China in the 70s because apparently she was such a rabid feminist that she thought that China had like a feminist revolution going on. So she actually went there, and that was not the case, which I find pretty funny. At least she admitted that she was wrong about that. She has not come to the greater understanding that all the feminist stuff that she was believing in was a lie, but at least she was willing to admit that part. Doesn't your mom hate men like so much? Yes. The problem is that she's kind of unaware of it. Although wanting to have a male slave as a husband isn't particularly something limited to feminists. It's something that probably like most people want. To just have a slave instead of a, a mutual partner. Why do you think all our anime is like, I summoned a beautiful demon and now she has to be my girlfriend for eternity? Shit like that. People would rather have a relationship in which they're not on equal footing with their partner than being forced to be on equal footing with their partner, you know? Being on equal footing with your partner requires you to do a lot of work keeping them happy. But if you just have like a sex slave or any kind of slave, shit is much easier. Your mom is a drow? Yeah, minus the part in which she lives underground. If my mom was a drow, she'd be much more supportive of me sleeping in the basement among the spiders and stuff. But she's like, no, you can't do that. It's bad for you. There's too much mold. I'm like, it's fine. I want to live in the mountains at sea with a view with someone else working to feed me where it can't bother me. Yes. That's what everybody wants. It do be like that. I just want someone who will listen to me rant about my nerdy ass hobbies. Don't do it here, nerd. If you ever say anything about 40k, we're gonna kick your ass off this chat. I don't want to hear about your fucking figurines. What's the most annoying hobby that you can start talking about on a date? to immediately get her to want to leave. Honestly, it can be anything if you're bad at having discussions. If you're probably a good conversationalist, you can probably get women to stick with your stupid fucking male hobby for more than a few minutes. But if you're shitty at creating conversation, then nobody wants to hear you talk. Probably reading. People who want you to know they read are the worst. We will have no more anti-LeBron slander on this stream. He most definitely read all those books he was carrying around when he was going to the playoffs. I wonder if there's like a blog that keeps track of all the books that LeBron was trying to read or pretending to read. Books that LeBron has pretended to read. AI overview. LeBron James is known for reading during playoff series, and some of the books he publicly displayed include The Alchemist. Alchemist, a true like goat of books that people pretend to read. The Hunger Games. I like how LeBron thinks that Hunger Games will increase his profile. West by Jerry West. Okay, basketball. The Pact. George Jenkins. Decoded by Jay-Z. Here's the image. Is that the Malcolm X book right there? I can't tell. It's always on like page 5. LeBron reading young adult novels. There's a possibility that he was actually able to get more than 30% into the Hunger Games, so... He should just go all in on the fact that he's actually not reading these books. And instead of just having the Hunger Games, he should just straight up have like Gravity's Rainbow or Finnegan's Wake or something. I want to see the LeBron Finnegan's Wake arc. Actually, I was thinking that, like... If you want to be truly impressive, you should go beyond the English literature. You should be like, what's his name? Our transportation secretary, Buttigieg, and be like, I learned Norwegian so I could read this specific novel. That's when the real flexing begins. Is being like, yeah, I had to learn a second language just to read this book. It wasn't a big deal, though. These are just the ancient Sumerian texts that I carry around, that I read in their original form. That's just how I roll. Advanced physics. Me and Elon are designing the new rocket. Speaking about Elon, I heard that he's left DC. I was giving Elon about a. I was saying he and Trump would split after 6 months or a year, and obviously I was being way too generous because they didn't even last a year; they lasted 6 months. So who could have seen that one coming, right? Two arrogant, self-centered man children wouldn't get along. Shocking, really. Also, Twitter was not Twitter. The New York Times was doing an article on Elon's Twitter timeline, and apparently he's still uh, pretending to be a top Path of Exile 2 player, even after he was obviously exposed. I think that's fucking hilarious. There's like a April post of him being like ranked #1 on the Path of Exile 2 leaderboards or some shit like that, and I was like, holy shit, he hasn't given up. He's still sticking to the bit. We all know he can't beat the Miller. Is Stephen Miller just too strong? Stephen Miller's incel energy is just like off the fucking charts. You can tell that he was bullied nonstop during high school by Latinos in his like Californian school or some shit. And he's been swearing revenge in the form of deportation for the last 30 years. It takes a lot of balls, though, for Elon to just be like, yeah, no, I am the top Path of Exile 2 player. Why would you think otherwise? Like, most people would be like, okay, you caught me. But he is the kid who didn't do the book report and is still insisting that he knows exactly what happened in Catcher in the Rye. He's like, yeah, there was lots of catches going on in the Rye, in Catcher in the Rye. It was a very interesting book. Oh, the bloated Miller, the first Path of Exile 2 boss, although Stephen Miller is also a bloated Miller. He's actually more like skeletal, I would say. I think he's really underweight. He has real, I don't know, Goebbels energy to him. Look at that high test hairline right there. Only the true high test males can get this level of balding. Just testosterone flowing through that bald skull right there. Also, of course, he's married to a brown woman, it seems. Oh wow, apparently his wife is working for Elon, so maybe they're on good terms. Here's a White House racist neo-Nazi Stephen Miller and his wife. Every single fucking time. Every modern conservative, like, white supremacist has to be married to a brown woman, doesn't he? Shaving it is a cope. I shave my hair, even though I have hair. It's more comfortable. Brown woman or better? I don't know about that. That's not what Tyrese Halliburton thinks. That's a very pretty lady. I mean, she's definitely a few solid points above what Stephen Miller would be able to get normally. So it's good that he was able to attach himself to the Trump politics. Because he probably wouldn't be able to get that level of wife without it. The stream was so legendary, him sitting in the dark, getting steamrolled by chat while he struggled with the tutorial of the game he swears he mastered while destroying the country full time. I mean, what that tells me is, not only does he not play Path of Exile 2, he probably doesn't play video games at all, is what I guess. Because even if you don't play Path of Exile 2, if you played enough video games, you would know that you can't do a video game stream without people noticing that you don't know how to play the video game in real time. But the fact that he thought that he could get away with it suggests to me that he probably doesn't just game at all, is my guess. He thinks that... It's pretty crazy how he thinks that playing video games is somehow cool, and it makes him cool. And he wants to engender himself to the type of people who play video games, and he wants to be in their good graces, which is very strange. Because, you know, gamers are not exactly the most desired demographic to get approval from. It seems very strange. All he had to do was check it out once before making a fool of himself in public. Or, if he was just a normal human being, he could be like, I'm super busy because I'm, you know, the tech Superman. I'm Lex Luthor here, trying to save the country, but I also like video games. Hey guys in stream, am I playing the video game the right way? And everyone would be really accepting of him. They would be like, oh cool, he's one of us. He doesn't have time to play games, but he still likes games. I like this guy. But it's not good enough for these people, especially Musk, to just be, you know, friends with other human beings. They have to be the best. They have to be worshipped. They don't want to be a human, they want to be a god. And as a result, they don't have the skills to be any of those things. It's really sad, honestly. Because you always knew one of those guys in, like, elementary school or middle school who would claim that... Like, there was always one guy in middle school who was like, oh, I have a girlfriend, but she doesn't come to this school, she lives across town. Or, oh, I got in a fight with a high school kid the other day. I got in a fight with 3 high schoolers the other day, and I beat all of them. It was easy, and you're just like, God, this kid is so sad, you know? So the fact that this guy is still behaving like that one sad kid in middle school when he's in his 50s, it's kind of depressing. You say this every stream, LMAO? I don't say this every stream. I just get reminded of it every stream. I wouldn't be speaking about this if Elon wasn't pretending. If Elon wasn't still pretending that he was a top Path of Exile 2 runner, I wouldn't be talking about it. It's just mind-boggling that he thinks he can still do it, even after people have figured it out. Like, he's not even smart enough to figure out that people have found him out. Or maybe he doesn't care. I don't know. Either way, it's pretty crazy. No one cares about a game. Will pay 5 Chinese guys to boost your account. The only way to be a #1 player in one of these ARPGs, which require you to grind non-stop. Like, if it was a different game, I mean, no one would still believe him, but no one would believe him, but he might be able to fake it better if it was like, I don't know, a fighting game or something like that, where you might just be able to get by on some amount of personal skill. But the game genre that he chooses to compete in, or pretend to choose to compete in, is literally a video game where you have to grind non-stop all day long to be at the top of the leaderboards, because it's all about like the drops and shit you get. So there's no real skill element, or at least not any real skill element that can be overcome without playing it for like 30 hours a day. So I'd take Anthony Scaramucci and the whack-ass 2016 clowns over this administration's horror show. I mean, Scaramucci got kicked out. He was too normal. He was too charismatic for Trump. That's the funny part. Maybe I don't need any gray after spending all this time putting tones. I don't know what I'm doing here. I haven't used enough screen tones in the past to make any real judgments. Are dark elves neats in this comic? No. Although that sounds like a good comic. My sister is a dark elf neat, and I'm trying to get her to work, but she refuses. Rule number 1 of the administration: no one in the court shall be prettier than Princess Trump, narrows it down quite a bit. Yeah. I mean, Scaramucci and Elon occupy the same zone in terms of like Trumpism, which is that they take up more space than Trump, or at least they were rivaling the amount of, media coverage that Trump was getting. And Trump is definitely not going to stand for that. That is a definite no-no. Guess this is good enough for now. All elves do is sit on their ass and look pretty. That's the point, though, unless we bring up 40k. I don't know. I like fantasy worlds where elves are, like, super powerful. It makes it better when the lowly humans impregnate them. I like to think of humans as orcs of the universe. As, like, just crazy, horny barbarians that rape and pillage their way across the planet. I think it turns out that humans were the space orcs all along. That's how I think about it. Because if humans actually had the opportunity to go into space and find some weird shaped aliens, they'd try and stick their penis in it, right? We have a lot of proof of this. Alright, I'm going to end the stream here. I have a lot of stuff that I basically have to do off stream because it requires a lot of like mental taxation, so I can't really do it. Even the finishing work that I was generally doing on stream, I've entered a phase in which I have to kind of compare the images that I'm producing to like other people's like professionally made manga to see like the balance in the black and white and stuff, so I can figure that shit out. So I can't really do that on stream. So I'm gonna end the stream here. See you around, guys. Bye. Good night.